episodes of this podcast at pitch.supportingcast.fm. In this week's premium episode, you'll hear pitches from writing pair Jesse Felix and Stefan Perez. They have a pilot script entitled Diamond Hands. And from writer and artist Kosuke Sasaki, who has a graphic novel entitled Splinter World. Be sure to check that out. You're listening to the Pitch Podcast. I'm Angel.
I'm Leah St. Marie.
And welcome. We like to think that we are bringing storytellers and their stories to the world.
That's the goal, at least.
Are we succeeding in it, though? And that is a what is the phrase I'm looking for?
That's a Twitter conversation.
It is also a Twitter conversation. I was thinking, is it that is a foreshadow of what we're talking about today?
Yes, I think so. Today's topic is success, and we're going to ask each other what that means. So it's it's objective. So don't participate too emotionally in the conversation. Just listen to how we
want them participating emotionally in the conversation.
We want you to cry by the end of this podcast.
I mean, if we were pulling the strings here.
Angel says it's like Mario Puzo, the Godfather, the marionette.
The marionette.
Yeah.
There's a position in jiu-jitsu called spider guard, where you kind of feel like you're a marionette, but from below. It's really weird. Anyway,
it's scary.
Yeah.
So, do you want me to ask you, or do you want to ask me?
Well, let's talk about success in general real quick, right? So, success is a broad term, and I think you have a pretty good grasp on how success isn't just one thing necessarily, but it is what then?
I mean, it's a multitude of things.
Yeah.
Right?
Highly individual.
Highly individual, yes.
Yeah.
There's what society would term successful. So I think sometimes success means money, but not always. Sometimes success can mean you move up the hierarchy of a system.
Okay.
Right? Keep going?
Sure, yeah, why not? I'm listening.
But I think for screenwriting, it can mean many different things during different points of your career. So we're beginning to mid, right? I had a movie, you're getting stuff made, you're doing the documentary, we've had funding for things, producers are interested in our stuff. So when I started out being a screenwriter, my idea of success, do you want to know?
Oh, I thought we were going to get there. Yeah, what was your idea for success?
My idea was sitting in a movie theater and seeing my name on screen.
So you've done that. Your initial idea of success has been achieved.
Yeah, but
congratulations, well done.
Oh, thank you.
Not many people succeed like that.
No. But I took this Summer Aspen Words with Benjamin Percy, which is this program that you take in Aspen, Colorado, and it does fiction, nonfiction, poetry. You can pick whichever one you want. And so I took the advanced fiction with Benjamin Percy, and he's talking about the ladder, right? And so you're on this ladder and you're trying to make it to the top. And whatever success you're defining success as is at the top of that ladder.
Okay.
And when you get it, when you're sitting in the theater and you see your name on screen, you've made it to the top of the ladder. Where do you go from there? And he's like, there is always another ladder.
Oh my God, this sounds dangerous. There's a ladder on top of that ladder?
Yeah. So every time you make it to the top of your success ladder, there's just another ladder to make it to. And
so you achieve your goal.
Yes.
And then what then?
New goal.
Oh God, this sounds awful.
No, it's good.
It's good.
Yes.
Okay.
So
tell me how it's good.
So I think that there are different ideas on what success is, and for me, and I think that sharing what those are or were or can be will help alleviate any pressure to our audience. They're like, I need to do A in order to feel like I am successful, or that I'm a real screenwriter and that I don't have imposter syndrome. And oftentimes it's like the metric by which we measure success in the film industry is recognition from our peers, and the ultimate recognition from our peers is the Academy Awards.
So if you're not an Academy Award winning screenwriter, in some people's eyes, you were not successful.
Yeah, and
that's like the most extreme. That's got to be the most extreme, right?
It's so extreme, and it's so daunting, and you should not put that pressure on yourself.
No, I don't. That would be insane if someone was like 7 studio pictures in, like living the high life, millions of dollars, like getting whatever they want made hadn't won an Academy Award and was
Yeah.
like, I'm not a success, they'd need therapy.
Yeah.
They'd need some serious, in my opinion, that would be so heartbreaking.
Yeah. So I have two ideas, and one of them was, so one of my favorite authors is John Irving, and he wrote this book called The New Hampshire Hotel. And he has this character in it who is a writer, and she writes in a library, and all of the greats are on the shelf. And she says, it is a daunting task. It is a daunting task to write with the eyes of all of the greats looking down on her. Like, so if your idea is that you need recognition from William Goldman, or, you know, he's passed away, but whoever it is that you think of as the greatest screenwriter, and you need to get your script in front of them and you need validation from them, I think working underneath that load and that caliber of success is also daunting, and you should not do that to yourself either. I shouldn't do that to myself. Like, I can't write a screenplay just to get John Irving's approval.
I got you. So for those of you listening who maybe consciously are aware of this or subconsciously are not aware of this, but have a suspicion that you're writing for like an impossible to satisfy audience,
Yeah.
like John Irving or all these greats, stop it.
Stop.
Unless it's inspiring you to do great work, and then maybe keep doing it. I don't know. Like
yeah.
maybe that's the inspiration some people need, because
People work differently.
people do work differently.
And I'm also thinking of, and I just mentioned trauma films. If your idea of success is, I just want to get it made, then that's, I think, one of the easier forms of success. Like, not that it's not difficult, but get it made.
Yeah.
Just get it out there and get it made. And then the number one for me, and I hope this doesn't sound condescending, but actually just finishing a script. Because a lot of writers do not finish a script because it's so difficult a task. Like we were talking with Stephen earlier.
Sure, yeah.
Right? Just finishing something is successful.
Okay, so then you're encouraging people to find ways to not let their ideas of what success is hurt them, slow them
Yeah.
down, stop them, like
Yeah.
find a way to have a functional and healthy definition of success so you can continue to be a happy person and write.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I think so.
So how has your definition of success changed or evolved since you originally were like, I want to sit in a movie theater and see my name up on the screen, which happened last year?
Yeah, which happened last year. Networking, I'm going to say, is the next ladder that I want to climb. And it's not this broad thing, and it's not this superficial thing. For me, networking is this true connection with filmmakers whose vision I align with, or who wants to put stories out into the world that are worthwhile and that they're passionate about it. Like connecting with Katrina and Mercedes is a form of success for me. I'm like, I get to work with these queer and wonderful female filmmakers, and we get to write the kind of stories that we want to write, and they support my vision. Like, that's a shiny jewel in my crown.
So basically finding your tribe,
Yeah.
finding people you resonate with, whose work resonates with you, and vice versa. That is a version of success for you.
That's a version of success, and one would hope, and it doesn't always happen, that success also leads to you paying your bills.
One would hope.
One would hope. It doesn't always, and you know what? That's okay sometimes, because you're hopefully building towards whatever project you want to do next, and that project will allow for the other thing to happen. Will allow you to be able to pay your bills.
So then finding your tribe is secondary to actually, as a writer, doing work to share with the tribe,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So then how do you define success for the act of writing and creating and bringing stories from your imagination onto a page and then sharing? How do you define, what are some metrics in there that you feel like I've succeeded here?
I'm going to turn that question on to you.
Oh, jeez. No, not yet. No.
Yeah. Why don't you lay it on us? What are when you started writing, what was your idea? What did you want to do with that script?
I have no idea.
Second script.
No idea.
When did you become aware that you wanted to do something? At what level?
I can't answer that.
That's
I have
okay.
no idea.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like the process for me, curiosity about the process of creating a story was the driving force, and I think it still is.
I love that.
So I wrote a script called Hammond, which I pitched in our first episode, as an exercise. I didn't write it for really. I wasn't like, oh, I want to get this made. It was just an exercise for me.
Yeah.
Part of a universe I was building out. It's part of a kind of a large world that I've conceived. And I was like, let me just do this as an exercise. And then I shared it with somebody and they were like, this is great. Let me share it with somebody else. And it got a little bit of interest, right? I've talked about that. When I sat down to write the next thing, I realized there was a lot I should learn.
Yeah.
And some things that I needed to practice. So I learned those things and I practiced those things. And I said, well, let me write another script and see if I can't implement the things I've learned and flush out the practice that I have.
I think that's its own ladder as well. Learning, being better, mastering something.
Yeah. I think for me, that isn't how I view it.
Okay.
I just do the thing. I just literally just, okay, what don't I understand? What are these screenwriting gurus saying? What is John August saying? What is Craig, in his grumpy way sharing? What advice are they imparting? Are those in my stories? Was that in my last script? No. Okay, so what does that mean? Let me break it down. Let me build it up and put it into the story and then see what happens.
Yeah.
I think that's the only thing I can go on.
Go ahead.
How do I build a good story based on these principles which I've discovered? Thank God that other people have shared them.
Yeah.
Thank God there are screenwriting gurus and screenwriting books and people whose opinions on screenwriting and how to do it exist. Because if those things didn't exist, I don't know that I would have figured any of it out. And maybe I haven't figured any of it out, right? I don't know yet. The market has not deemed me having figured it out just yet.
Yeah, I think
But I'm curious.
I think that's also putting the onus on the market to view you as being successful as opposed to you finding in yourself that you are successful. And I know that you're questioning the ideas of what success is and how it applies to you or doesn't apply to you. But I also think that for me, when I'm writing, like when I wrote my first short story, it took me a year because I'd never done that form before. And when I finished my short story, I felt so satisfied with myself for having just finished it because it was a feat.
Yeah.
And I think finding success in that satisfaction is something that is skipped over a lot, or I skip over a lot when I write something because I'm like you. I write a script, I finish the script, I'm like, next one.
Oh, I'm not like that.
You're not like that?
No,
Wait,
no,
what
no,
do
no,
you
no,
do?
no, no. I'm like, dear God, let me recover. Dear God, what did I just do? Why don't I have anyone in my life anymore? What happened? Why is writing so painful?
Writing is painful.
That's what happens when I finish the script.
I think, again, going back to John Irving, he said something about you will never find something as judgmental as a blank page.
This goes back to our conversation about writer's block, though. I don't have what those people have when it comes to writer's block and the blank page being intimidating. I mean, maybe I'll develop it. God forbid.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's coming around the corner.
Oh, great.
But I don't have that. I'm like,
Oh, thank goodness. I want to share.
I'll go do something else. I'm not going to let a blank page, intimidate me.
Angel and I have been talking about what is the point of art lately. I think it's been at the precipice of our conversations for the past couple of weeks. And you were talking about Picasso the other day.
Yeah.
What was the quote?
The purpose of art, and I may be bastardizing this quote, and I'm attributing it to him, but it may not be a Picasso quote, but I think it is. I think at one point he said the purpose of art is to blow dust off of the soul.
And that really struck a chord with me, whatever the thing is that Susan Roger.
Oh, and
Susan
you're
Rogers.
pecunious?
Yeah.
Yeah. The region of your brain that lets you know when something resonates with you or you like it or you don't. There's
Yeah.
a brain region.
I really like that. And I was also thinking about you and I are in accord with this idea of loneliness, how palpable loneliness can be, and how watching a movie doesn't necessarily cure it, but connects you. Because your art is a pathway or a bridge that connects you with humanity.
Yeah, it
Right,
definitely does for me. Yeah.
And I think that's something that, what's the author who wrote Slouching Towards Bethlehem?
No idea.
Essayist newspaper. I'll
It's a
remember
great
her
question.
later.
If you know, leave a comment.
If
in
you
the, in
were
the,
Edna St. Vincent Millay.
oh yeah, of course.
Anyway, I was hanging out with my buddy Sean the other night, and he gets this text from a friend of his back east. He's from Pennsylvania, and his friend, who is currently a cold case investigator, homicide detective, who used to have aspirations to be an actor, sent him this text, and it leveled my soul in a very particular way, and I want to share it, and I got permission to share it. So he writes, Sean's buddy writes to Sean, Indy, as in Indiana Jones, Indy gives me strength. If ever called upon, it provides the compass, the direction. I acknowledge it as fiction, but through that art form, we can find some truth, something to say. What would he do? If it only gives me 5 minutes of courage, and in that 5 minutes I have saved one life or changed one life, then the art worked. I hear in the music video what I could be.
This guy needs to get into poetry. This is like,
Yeah.
What is he doing solving cold cases?
But it brings me like all of these ideas of what success can be. Success can be money. Success can be awards. Success can be networking or rising in power. But I think this is the purest form of what success should be for artists, is finding that connection with our audience and having them feel this palpable way. Whatever emotion that is. If it's you need to cry, like Midsummer talks about grief and the theme of grief and how you mourn better with a community that mourns with you and understands with you, then that horror movie, I found that connection that is needed, right? Or if you need to laugh because you're in just a shitty mood and you watch Meet the Fockers, like how beautiful an art form is that?
Thank you for sharing that. Firstly, how does the writer of that movie ever get that feedback to be like, yes, I feel successful now, though?
I don't know. I really don't. Like, we have forums and we have Reddit and we have Twitter, but it's this pile of mush that you can't weed out, or unless you're like searching for compliments, you know?
So then I'll circle back to my original question, which you avoided.
Oh, I did?
Yes, very different.
Did I do it well?
No, you just said no.
Watch
I'm
me
gonna
sidestep.
ask you a question.
I'm good at dodging.
So then how do you define success in your writing process?
In the writing process, I think I'm so deep in theme and character and action lines that I'm not thinking of success in any kind of term. I don't think, unless you can like throw another question, like
Well, if you've got
fine-tune
a
it.
character that you've created and you've come up with a theme that you know is like binding your story, right? Mm-hmm. You know your genre, you know the basic story. Like, how do you know if you succeeded writing a scene based on those various elements? How do you know you've created a successful antagonist? Like, how do you know? Like, this is the question. Like, what's your process for being like, this sucks, aka I failed, or this succeeded, aka I did what I wanted to do. I set out to climb that ladder and I got the goal.
Yeah. Well, you and I talk about the math equation of art somewhat.
Okay.
Time plus effort equals the thing getting done or success, right?
This is your equation. I have a different equation.
You have a different equation.
Yeah.
So I was taking this class, let's say, with my friend and mentor, Mito Taha. And Mito says that a scene should do no less than 3 of 5 things. And if I meet this caliber by which Mito defines what makes a good scene, then I feel like that's what I've written. And you're about to ask me, what are those 5 things?
No, I was going to say, okay, so you've got a framework as created by someone you respect.
I do.
That you compare your work to upon semi-completion.
Yes.
You say, okay, so Mito says I need to do these 5 things or these 3 things minimum, and 5 is the optimal.
Yeah.
This scene does 4 of them. Great. Moving on.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah.
Now I can have a biscuit.
So many biscuits.
Okay, so this is interesting. So you have a framework that you've been provided that you like.
Did I not tell you that I have these 5 things?
I mean, you tell me so many things, and then you say so many names to me, like
I
Mito. There's like this person. There's John Irving. That's like I'm an uneducated guy. I don't know any of this stuff.
Everywhere in his apartment right now.
What are?
There are books everywhere in your apartment right now.
There's of some DVDs. By the way,
Yeah.
DVDs need to make a comeback.
I love DVDs.
People are removing like streaming shows off of streaming services and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, where do you get your favorite shows?
Yeah. Anybody want to buy me Parks and Rec? I want to
You've seen
watch
it
that
6 times.
I'm watching it again.
Oh my goodness.
But going back.
Okay, so you have a framework by which you compare what you've written to what an expert in your opinion has said. This is how it should look, basically. Or
Yeah.
These are the things you need to do.
Yeah.
Okay, great. This is super helpful.
You ready?
You're going to tell me the things.
I'm going to lay them on you.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I didn't even need them, but sure.
People might be interested.
Yeah, they got the internet. They can look it up.
Okay. Look it up. Call Mito. I'll give you his phone
I don't
number.
even know. Who is this Mito character? Who is this person?
He's a friend of mine. He's like the smartest guy I know.
So, and Mito teaches what?
So Mito was teaching at, he was teaching classes where I met him, but he's also done stuff at UCLA.
What sort of writing teaching does he do?
Screenwriting.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So this is someone who's in the field of screenwriting.
In the field, he's gone through the Sundance
Okay.
thing. He speaks 9 languages. He's a director. He's a screenwriter. Uber smart dude.
Okay, great.
So he says in order for a scene to work well, it has to be doing 3 of 5 things. And the 5 things are, if I can remember all of them, speak to plot,
Okay.
speak to character,
Okay.
speak to character relationships. Yeah. Speak to theme. And it has to sound fucking cool.
I mean, yeah, that's a seems pretty straightforward to me.
Yeah, but sometimes
No surprises there.
No surprises. Sometimes scenes are only doing one thing, and I think to have the necessary texture in which we are telling stories nowadays, it should be doing at least 3 of those 5 things. But let me ask you, because you didn't really answer the question that you asked me. How
What's
do
the
you know a
question?
scene is done?
How do I know a scene is done?
Yeah.
Because I write the next slug line.
Oh, what a cop out.
So somebody wants something in a scene. Usually 2 people. If there's 2 people in a scene, someone wants something in a scene, and it's done when they either get it, or it's clear to the audience that they're going to get it based on the battle that they've just won, or that they're not going to get it, and then they have a new problem or dilemma to solve. Yeah, there's no point staying in a scene after that.
Yeah.
I mean, that without having ever thought about it before, like, yeah, that's how I'd think about it. That's how I'd answer.
How do you know a script is done?
Because I write the end.
Yeah.
Like I've talked about this. I conceive my endings before I start, right? Like
Same.
I have to know.
I have to know. Otherwise, what am I building towards?
And maybe I'll get smarter. Maybe with more practice, I will grow away from that. I don't know. I'm not holding my breath, but maybe I will. So I know how it ends.
Yeah.
Like, how do I know when I'm done with the first draft?
Yeah.
When like all my friends are gone and I'm alone and like my cats are mad at me. I like haven't shaved and I'm like super pale and like haven't exercised in months.
Oh my goodness.
No, I know where the ending's going. So if I can successfully create everything that causes the ending I conceived to be powerful and cathartic and to wrap up the story that I wrote well, then I know like I have a cohesive piece. How do I know like my first draft is done is when I write that, I have all the pieces in there. There's no missing pieces from page 1 to, the end.
I'm going to throw something out there.
Okay.
when I write a first draft of something, I am always short on pages.
Yeah.
I clock in a first draft at 70 pages.
Woo. Okay.
Yeah. What are you clocking at?
How do you feel about that? Our first draft processes are different.
Yes, they are.
You will write a script in a week.
Yeah.
I will meticulously plan a script for a long time. And so I'm generally a little long.
Yeah.
120, 125.
Keep going.
I think Red Lighters was 127. Maybe it was 130. Maybe it was 130. No, it was under 130. I was like, I'm not going to give anybody something more than, I think it was like 126 or something like that.
Yeah.
With the title page, right?
Yeah.
But in part, that's because I'm planning on directing that. And it's a blueprint, and I didn't want to forget anything. You know, oftentimes they say keep a pad of paper or like your notepad by your bed, so when you have ideas in the middle of the night or as you're falling asleep, you don't forget them. Because if you think, oh, inevitably I'm going to remember these in the morning, I always forget, and they're always like the best ideas ever, right? I would have won Academy Awards by now if I had made stuff based on those ideas. So for me, when I'm writing, a ton of ideas come to me. I'm like, I'm going to be a little long in this. And that's okay, because this last script was a document for me, for future Angel to direct this, so I didn't forget any of the nuance and any of the specificity I wanted in these moments.
Right.
So for that, I was a little long.
Yeah.
Hammond, I'm pretty money. I mean, the one I wrote in December for the producer, it was on the money.
Yeah.
It was 120.
Well, and the reason I mentioned that is there is such strict policy when you're submitting to competitions, which is another form of success that people think and sometimes does work. This is a step. Winning the nickels is a step towards getting the other thing that I actually want.
Sure, yeah.
That they have this metric of it has to be between 70, I think is the lowest for the nickels, but can't be over 120. Right? But when we did In the Light of the Moon, which is the thing that I wrote and directed, that script was short. The script was less than 80, more than 70. The movie, 2 hours long. We had to cut stuff because we Terrence Malick the shit out of it.
Yeah. There was some extenuating circumstances for production that required some.
That's a separate thing. That's a separate thing.
Zhuzhing. That's like a filmmaking thing.
But when you know you're going to direct it, like you know you're going to direct Red Lighters, like I knew I was going to direct In the Light of the Moon, the page count is arbitrary. So if you're putting extra pressure on yourself that it has to fit into something, why?
Well, because we're told it has to fit, and you're inevitably beholden to some other people. You're not like going to go out and shoot a movie by yourself. Like it's just not going to happen. Maybe it's happened in the history of cinema, but someone's got to be in front of the camera and someone's got to be behind it. Someone's got to hold the boom. And even if you're doing documentary style where you got a camera with a microphone mounted on it, like someone's got to be in for, your photograph, something's in front of that camera.
I agree with you, because Allen Ginsberg, the famous beatnik poet, taught classes at NYU, and beat poetry was all about free form, free verse. And all of these students showed up to his class just wanting to do free verse because it's 1950s, 1960s, it's just after the war. You're looking for freedom of expression. He's like, no, you need to know the form first in order to break it. So I do agree with you that you need to know what are the specificities by which a script should be in order to be accepted, because we're looking at gatekeepers in the industry. Like readers will read a couple of pages and look for any reason to dismiss the script because they can't greenlight a script. They can't greenlight everything. So any reason to not greenlight something makes their job easier, right? And page count is one of those things.
Just a little quick side interjection. Like, what are the qualifications to become a reader? Like, what are the qualifications to become a reader? I saw an ad to become a reader, and they were trumpeting that you need no qualifications. They're like, don't worry, you don't need to know anything about it. You don't need to know anything about screen. You don't need to have written something before. You don't need to have read a script before. Zero. And I was like, I can see how this could create like some good feedback based on no preconceived ideas of what a screenplay needs to be, but also how it might be a little problematic in some instances.
It is interesting because, I'm sure that they're given a list of things to measure, because you
Yeah.
see those forms on theme, plot, character, page length,
Yeah.
theme, blah, blah, blah. And I remember getting notes back from the Austin Film Festival years ago when I submitted, and they told me to not direct on the page, which we're both advocates and fans of script notes, and they talk a lot about what's your script. You can direct on the page if you want to. And so
It's these like general rules and missives thrown about. They're confusing for screenwriters early in their career.
yes, but you're allowed to do whatever you want to do, right? Basically, like I complained on Twitter at the Austin Film Festival.
Oh no, did you really?
And I like to complain. And I tagged Craig Mason in my complaints because
Sure.
they talk all the time. And so Craig Mason went to bat for me. He's like, yeah, you're allowed to direct on the page. That shouldn't be a reason for you to reject anyone's script from a competition.
No way. This
And-
actually happened?
Yeah, and the Austin Film Festival tweeted back at me and Craig and was like, you're absolutely right. That will no longer be or should not have been a caliber by which this reader rejected your material.
Wow. I can't believe this.
But to your question, like who is reading these things? I think these competitions, because there are so many competitions for screenwriters, the reason that the ones that we say are the ones that you should submit to, like the Nichols, like the Austin Film Festival, and at least for me, Screencraft, because I had success with Screencraft and getting my thing into Shudder. I know that the Nichols, after you make it past the first round of readers, I don't know who those first round of readers are, it goes into industry people.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I don't have a lot more to say about. And look, I know there are some very seasoned, excellent, intelligent people reading, because we had John Zalzerny on, and he talked about he read for a long time, and that's
Yeah.
a highly capable, experienced
Yeah.
writer, filmmaker. This guy's as smart as they come, and I'm like, great, yeah, this guy clearly knows how to read a script. Yeah, I have like all sorts of like thoughts and feelings about it. Like, don't direct on the page. It for me. Where I was going to go earlier was there are all these like rules, right? I think it's important to kind of figure out why these rules exist. What is the why, right? Why do they say don't direct on the page? Why does that exist, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know the answer to that. Other than like the director is going to dismiss what you're saying on the page. But I mean, if you're writing in a way, you have to know how the thing's going to cut together. I think it just maybe I don't think enough like just a writer. Maybe I am constantly like imagining things as a director as well. But I think it's helpful because your writing can become more economical and be informed. If you're thinking like an editor, like when you're writing, like
exactly. If you're thinking like an editor or you're thinking like a director, like your transitions are going to be tighter. What you focus on in the action lines will be present, and they'll make it into an insert. Yeah,
but the thing I was going for is, why does this rule exist generally? Like, what is behind the rule? And then how do you break it, or how do you follow it? Like if you're directing on the page, like the camera does, a 30-degree tilt up and then pans, like if you're being, it's like, how do you execute on a thing? How do you direct on the page? Well, and how do you direct on the page so it bumps a reader and they're like, don't direct on the page? That's my big question for everybody, really. Like, how do you take the 183 general rules about screenwriting? Don't write big chunks of like description on the first page.
Don't be Paul Schrader.
But like, how do you take all these things that people are like, don't do this, and then there are clear examples that exist that break that rule?
So many examples break the rule.
How do you then do what you're going to do? And how do you break the rule and not get rejected for breaking that rule? And why does the rule exist? Like that's a special like kind of matrix that I think about in writing, because I'm like, well, if I'm going to direct this, then I can like do some stuff in here. But also, if someone's going to read this, like, how do I not get overly directorial on the page?
Well, that's something that you've mentioned before with red lighters specifically, is if you're submitting your script to a competition and it's going to go through the reader process. That is a different version of the script
100%.
than what you wrote for yourself as a director.
Yeah. And it's and having written one version for myself and then subsequently made the mistake of submitting it to contests and getting it's gotten good feedback. It's but it's like,
well,
I don't need the feedback, hey, this is like a little dense. It's like,
no.
Yeah, I know. And like I ultimately didn't write this for readers, like, which is maybe a mistake on my part. I'm like, I'm going to show this to 7 people and get it made, blah 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 blah. Which, is maybe a little naive at the time. But I've also have readers come back and are like, this is fantastic. This is amazing. And there's nothing about the other issues that readers have lightly pointed out.
I sometimes have a version of a script where it's specifically to be enjoyed by a reader. It's visual on the page and not like imaginary visual, but actually physically visual. That I know when it goes into production, I won't need to have that. I'm just doing it for the reader's enjoyment. Right?
Yeah.
Because bringing it back, I want that script to be successful in a very particular way.
So you're tailoring the product, a script in this case,
Yes.
for the success that you want for a reader to have a good experience.
Yes.
Yeah. So that brings up a curious thing. Like, I have read scripts before that are very enjoyable to read.
For instance?
No, I'm not going to name it because where I'm going with this is that, and then you watch the movie, you're like, oh, they botched this, or there's like a missing element in it, or like, there's a translation process that goes on between what a writer or a pair of writers sat down and worked on for months and then turned out on a page, and then what 183 other people have to go and create moving images and sound.
Yeah.
Based on that, right?
Yeah.
I don't know where I was going with that. It's just a weird phenomenon to.
Were you going to talk about rule breaking a little bit?
No, I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about.
And it wasn't Edna St. Vincent Millay. It was Joan Didion. I'm a fool.
Didn't she like lead an army to revolution? Wasn't she like fighting in the Holy War or something?
Joan Didion?
Yeah, she was like a young woman who like shaved her head and went into battle. I'm thinking of Joan of Arc. We're gonna edit that part out.
Different Joan.
Different Joan. That's my grandmother's name on my mom's side.
Different Jones. Oh, the one who has a birthday?
Yeah, on Tuesday.
Cool. Happy birthday to Joan.
Happy birthday, Joan.
So
what's your next project, Teatro? What is your idea of success for that?
I know exactly my answer.
I'm waiting to hear it.
I have two avenues to success for this. The first avenue is very broad. I want to have people in America recognize Marcello Mastroianni. And a B part to that is I want Italians to enjoy my movie. I want Italians to enjoy my movie. But the second part is I want to finally have written and directed something that my mom can watch because she doesn't like horror movies.
Oh no, she can't watch the Spoonful of Sugar.
She can't and she won't.
Yeah.
And so
I support her on that.
Yeah, we often have conversations where she's like, "Oh, is this one that I can watch this time?" And I have to say, "No, it's not."
I like that. Those are good metrics for. Well, I mean, I guess the first one is kind of hard. Like, how do you know that Americans recognize Marcello? Like,
I don't know. I know because it's a broad thing, but it's a broad thing. I don't know, but I feel
it's like porn. You'll know it if you see it. But you can't define it beforehand, right? Didn't the Supreme Court say that?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. Marcello is he's such an iconic figure in film history that it breaks my heart that people don't know him.
Why though?
Why don't they know him, or why does it break your heart?
Everybody's just out there living perfectly average lives. Why does it break your heart that they don't know Marcello?
He's just such a powerful and fun and funny and charismatic and honest force on screen. Mm-hmm. And he didn't do that many American films, which I have a there was kind of a reason for that. He had it in his contract that if he did a film in America, every Tuesday they'd have to fly his barber in from Italy to give him a haircut. And a lot of productions couldn't afford to do that. That's just a little funny. I don't know how honest
that's
that
how you
is.
know you're successful as an actor.
But he was so
when they fly your barber in.
He was so prolific, and he was just, I don't know. I watch him on screen, and I fall in love with his performances.
And you want people to fall in love too.
Who doesn't want other people to fall in love?
I don't. With the things I'm in love with, it's a naive and foolish endeavor. I found.
What things are you in love with?
Like Oscar Peterson and Phineas Newborn Jr. and
Yeah.
and I'm just like, people just don't get it. Like I get it.
But you're introducing with your podcast that you have people to music.
Yeah. The disappointment with people not feeling the way I feel and not responding the way I feel, I'm still like recovering from that. When something hits me so powerfully, like things hit us all, and then the enthusiasm for those things, you share that enthusiasm, and then you see the lack of understanding or disappointment on people's faces. That hurts me personally.
That's every time I pitch you one of my ideas, that's your reaction.
you just got to keep trying, just don't give up.
Yeah.
But it's a curious thing. It's like we discover things that we covet and we love, and then we want to share them.
Yeah.
But certain things resonate with so few people that at what point is it just heartbreaking to then have people not respond the way you want them to respond?
Yeah.
And maybe that's the like grump in me. And maybe that's where my hope died long ago. I'm just like, I am just going to like rock with what I like.
Well, let me ask you this, because you asked me about my Italian film.
Mm-hmm.
And forgive me if you do not have an answer or can't articulate it, but your film, Red Lighters, that we're trying to get off the ground, what is success for that for you?
It's just doing it. Like, if I can do it like I am conceiving it and like I've planned it, the doing will be the success.
I think that...
And then whatever else is a byproduct. The process is the success.
I think those are magic words for people to think of their writing, to just do it.
There's a book that I was asked to read for a course. Oh man, and it's I'm drawing a blank on the book, but I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And the basic gist of the book was the process has to be the reward. Like Sarah Gamble talks about this. Sarah Gamble is the showrunner and writer of You, which is one of my favorite TV shows. She's also a really fantastic poet.
And she's just nice online.
And she's great online. I'm a huge fan of her. And her office is, it used to be just up the street from me. But she answers questions online all the time. And one of the answers she has is she's like, I just love writing. I just love writing, right? So if you love a thing, then the process isn't a painful one. You're more likely to have like byproduct success that other people can acknowledge. Like this is a person who just likes to write. So her getting to do that is, I think, the first and most important step of succeeding.
Okay.
Which I have adopted. I'm like, you know what? It just has to be the thing day to day. I sit down, I open up the document, I work on it. Period. What happens 3 months later? I don't know.
Follow-up question. How do you celebrate that success?
I don't.
I know you don't.
I don't celebrate the success.
Why?
Because the celebration isn't success. Celebration is something else.
Yeah.
The success is the success. So, like if Red Lighters gets made and like wins Cannes or something insane, then I'll probably celebrate that event. But I don't. Celebration isn't part of my process, so I don't have an answer for that other than I don't celebrate. Okay. I just do the thing, and the thing has to be the reward. The thing has to be the celebration for me.
Yeah.
Like I'm finding, for whatever reason, the way I'm built, that has to be it. I can't be doing it for money. I can't be doing it to like, party with my friends. I just have to be able to do the thing, and that's it.
I think that's the bottom line of what success is for me. I wrote something good that I'm proud of.
How do you then celebrate? Because you do celebrate.
I do celebrate, and
which is probably healthier than mine.
it's so much healthier. So back when I would sell a script, I would take some of that money and I would go and have a nice dinner at Little Dom's in Los Feliz. And sometimes Sean would be with me. Oftentimes Sean was with me because he lives nearby.
He was like a block away.
He could walk.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I go for the atmosphere. And sometimes people bring playing cards and they sit. It's like very European sometimes if you go later in the day. Yeah, that's what I would do to celebrate.
Would you ever go to Little Dom's, meet Sean, and bring playing cards if you weren't celebrating?
No, because we didn't have any money from me having sold a script.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Cheers from Hollywood.
Yeah, cheers from Hollywood. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
And that concludes our chat about success and how that looks to us as writers and creatives. I know Leah had a good time with it, and I survived. We want to thank you for listening and encourage you to check out our next episode where we'll be talking about something really cool or interviewing someone really fun. If you're on the fence about subscribing, know that a portion of all subscription fees go toward the nonprofit Young Storytellers, raising voices one story at a time.